So, as we all know, it is an important undertaking for Africa and its people, and it was incepted by the New Partnership for Africa's Development with mandate to standardize practices that bring about political stability, economic growth, and sustainable development. APRM encourages Africa and Africans to adopt a culture of accountability and provides a means of addressing issues that can affect good governance, such as corruption and misplaced priorities. As we know that most African countries have been marred with corruption and also misplaced priorities in terms of budgeting and other issues. Now, having said that, the APRM is also concerned with all areas of society and good governance, but in particular, the following 4 areas of focus: democracy and good governance, political governance, economic governance and management, corporate governance, and socio-economic development. So participation in the APRM is voluntary, and Zambia acceded to the African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM, of course, on the 22nd January 2006, under the leadership of late President Mwanawasa at the African Union Summit held in Khartoum, Sudan. And later, with the Ministry of Justice, we confirmed that the Ministry of Justice is our focal point institution. And we have a focal point person also stationed at the Ministry of Justice in the name of a specialist. For the APRM to be effective, it requires participation of all stakeholders in the country. And this includes, of course, government, parliament, private sector, minority groups such as women groups, political parties, NGOs, academia, even institutions such as ourselves and the community at large. This is because of development of a country does not rest with the government alone, and so citizens must be participatory, and so this is one of the many critical components of Africa peer review mechanism. The APRM enhances Africa's ownership of its own development agenda and process. Now, coming to the question why APRM is beneficial to Zambia. We have listed a few things. Number one, that is wide-scale participation in governance. So the APRM is a transparent tool, and it can only work if there is participation from every concerned citizen. Like I stated earlier, we have stakeholders such as government, parliament, the community at large, NGOs, civil society as well. So there are many ways to participate in APRM, such as getting information, taking part in public hearings, in public debates, and so on and so forth. Another aspect is the monitoring and accountability. So for a country to run effectively and efficiently, there must be monitoring and accountability. So for APRM, it provides avenues for both self-monitoring and peer review, holding nations accountable not only to the people but to the African continent at large through the mother body itself, NEPAD, and the African Union. So the other aspect is shared experiences and capacity building. The APRM encourages learning from peers, capacity building where necessary, and if the country can self-assess itself and also give report to identify problems, the APRM forum suggests ways how the problem can be handled. So also, through country reports, there is sharing of best practices. And these best practices, of course, we have seen other countries doing very well in Africa, and learning from each other is provided by this platform. So plan of action provides clear indicators. That's another aspect, where having a plan of action which is developed during the APRM process, which means that there are clear and measurable outcomes. This is a good tool for all stakeholders to ensure that governments are on track regarding good governance and benchmarks.
I'll try to look at how Zambia has fared in terms of the progress and the implementation of APRM. So to analyze Zambia's, I think, progress, what we did some trend analysis, taking some data from the Mo Ibrahim website, and we did those two beautiful graphs that is showing how Zambia has fared in terms of governance. So I think the areas of focus of the Mo Ibrahim index are in sync with the areas of focus of APRM, which talks about safety and rule of law, participation and human rights, sustainable economic opportunity, and human development. Figure 2 is just showing where we stand in comparison with other countries in Africa. So you can see the highest, of course, there from the countries that are listed: Namibia at 68.6, the lowest Zimbabwe at 44.7, and Zambia, of course, in the middle somewhere there. But on the African continent, I think on a large scale, we are number 18 out of the 54 countries. Some of the policy objectives that have been mentioned, we've highlighted them. Government actually enacted the Movable Asset Act to improve small investors' access to credit. We created the Ministry of Gender. So these achievements are on the basis of the recommendation that came from the APRM report in terms of what we needed to do as a country after we were peer reviewed. So we created the Ministry of Gender. We've intensified infrastructure development programs, intensification of the fight or abolishment of early marriages. We reviewed the Companies Act, of course, to incorporate issues of corporate governance and to simplify company registration procedures. The FIC was created, but I think our recommendation there is indicating the fact that the challenge on us as a country is to build the capacity of such institutions so that their reports are credible and accepted by all. We increased the pace of domestication of international conventions. We amended the Constitution in 2016, and of course there's the ongoing constitutional review process. To be specific, the issues of return. Zambia has also offered organically homemade model for non-state coordination of APRM activities through what is known as the CSO APRM Secretariat. But currently, I think, because this is one of our best practice, but of late, I think the Secretariat, the Civil Society Secretariat, has been non-functional, I think, because of funding issues. Then I'll comment on Zambia's reluctance to undergo another review since 2010, as the letter indicated. Our comment is the fact that since we were actually peer reviewed in 2013, when our late president actually appeared before the APRM panel in 2013, we have not undergone another review. Because the APRM in terms of reference indicate that reviews should be done periodically in periods of 2 to 4 years. So from 2013, we should have gone for another review in 2015 or 2017. So the recommendation there is that there's need for us, of course, to undergo it. So in line with the APRM calendar missions, Zambia is also among the 6 countries that have been targeted for targeted review by APRM through the Mineral and Tourism Resource Contribution. If you look at the report that was done by the Country Review Mission, they indicated that the participation in the stakeholder consultations was generally inclusive, even though the representation of government were numerically dominant. So we need to do more to bring the civil society, like our ED indicated through the presentation. Of course, these stakeholders include, among others, Parliament, of course, the executive, the judiciary, minority groups, political parties, NGOs. Then if you look also at the composition of the current National Governing Council, it is composed of 10 members. 6 of those are coming from government. Government, that is the 3 arms of government. And the 4 are coming from the private sector. When I think the opposite should actually be true.
Key to the success APRM is the structure, composition, and relative autonomy given to its national APRM Governing Council. So Ghana had completed what is considered to be a very successful APRM process on this basis. So we urge our government to look into that as well. There's need for an enhanced sensitization and education of CSOs, media and the general citizenry on the importance of APRM. And we thought that we could even target or pinpoint a specific ministry, which is Ministry of Justice, as it is right now. And mainstreaming of APRM objectives in all government programs need to be intensified, so the Ministry of Justice should take lead in this. There's need for periodic holding of National Governing Council dissemination forums in all corners of the country with all interest groups represented, so that they can have an idea of what APRM is and then make their due submissions. Also, APRM rule should explicitly talk about one of the inherent dangers of APRM implementation process concerning rules that do not prevent governments dominating the process of implementing national plans of actions, and also participation of non-state actors. Will not only strengthen capacity, share responsibilities, but also legitimize the whole process. Now, there's also a need to review the composition of the APRM's National Governing Council to cater for minorities such as the disabled. Conclusively, there is also a need to enhance funding to the APRM Secretariat to enable it to carry out its mandate effectively, and this it's just a reiteration from the first point. And to guarantee effective coordination of APRM activities, consideration should be given to the creation of a standalone APRM Secretariat as opposed to the government unit under the Ministry of Justice alone. So this could double the Secretariat needs. Yeah. And having said that, we recommend that government should look into the getting to be peer reviewed as soon as possible, because that will give us a very good outlook out there in the international community at such a time where there is a lot of negative news going out about the country. So this gives a very good view. Thank you very much.
You have indicated that membership to APRM is voluntary. And other witnesses who've come before you have indicated that actually this country owes the mechanism about $600,000. And then you have also indicated that as a country, they are reluctant, or this country is reluctant to undergo another peer review. Is there any reason why this country should not withdraw from this mechanism instead of us probably saving money for other need areas?
Okay, but if you check from 2015 to 2017, the graph started going downwards. So I would be very interested to know what factors contributed to the graph going downwards. Or is it the case that actually because the review wasn't done, that effect, those specific factors which were supposed to be monitored were not hit?
You also say there is need for enhanced funding to the APRM activities. Who should fund these activities? And considering the fact that Honorable Member for Dwamwezi did allude to the fact that this country owes the mechanism $600,000.
APRM is voluntary in such a way that when it was instituted, it went out through the NEPAD, the New Partnership for Africa's Development, and the African Union itself, and attracted countries to say join, and these are the benefits, and the benefits that I partially stated. Coming to who should fund the APRM Secretariat, and it being non-functional right now, it is government's responsibility, but also the CSO Secretariat must also endeavor to look for money, just like other CSO organizations look for money from donor funders.
The route of withdrawing might not be the best option, because even us as research institutions, if you want to benchmark yourself against a best, the requirement is that you need to be peer reviewed. Even when you do a paper, some other person needs to go through to check for mistakes. So APRM, if we are to improve service delivery as a country, is actually a requirement, not even an option. We still need to be there so that other countries can check us and see that we are actually doing the very best in terms of service delivery. Then on the question that related to the graph going down after 2015, of course, as the Honorable Member has indicated, the Mo Ibrahim Index is actually an aggregate of several other factors, one of which is the safety and rule of law, human rights, sustainable economic development, and human development. So as you've noted, of course, the growth in terms of economic growth has been sluggish. So this index being an aggregate, of course, when you have the subcomponent of the factors that are measured not doing very well, they'll pull the overall average. And in terms of, I think, credibility, what they do, it's not necessarily that we didn't undergo a review. Annually, they collect this information from different sources. I think in excess of even 40 sources, from civil society, the private sector, from government itself. So this index is actually computed on an annual basis from different sources. Then on the Secretariat, the focal point ministry, the governance unit, they get their funding through the appropriation that come actually from Parliament, and they also appear in the Yellow Book.
But also added to that, there is a Human Development Index report that also comes out and also assesses us as a nation. So tentatively, there are three main reports: HDI, Mo Ibrahim, and the APRM. And what's been happening is that the APRM of all the three looks to be the most that is actually not well funded and hasn't been well functional. And between 2013 and 2016, there was actually no country that was peer reviewed. So that just shows that focus has now gone to Mo Ibrahim because, number one, it uses wide range of indicators that perhaps if they assess how a country is performing, then they would be able to gather as many components as possible, from governance to economic development to safety and rule of law. And APRM on its own was not able to meet that obligation. So as a result, you see that focus is now shifting on Mo Ibrahim, and that's why we've put that. And now what is happening is that Mo Ibrahim has come to partner with APRM as a strategic partner. And we foresee the question that the Honorable Member said, should we withdraw? I think the answer is no, because the fact that Mo Ibrahim has come on board, we feel that the shape of APRM will change. And talking about the polarization within the media, of course, people have not taken keen interest because there's been little sensitization. And the question is, who should do that sensitization? Currently, Ministry of Justice is not doing that sensitization. And civil society has to come on board. For civil society to come on board as well, there has to be interest drawn from justice to say, come, let's work together and understand the importance of involving private sector and all other sectors of society. So that there's a gap currently that we've observed. And from here, I think the challenge or the recommendation from this committee perhaps should be to interrogate the National Country Office and find out what strategy they've come up with to ensure that there's one, collaboration with as many stakeholders as possible. Number two, a vigorous campaign that will allow as many people as possible to take keen interest and know about APRM. Because even if we say let's be peer reviewed next year, when the mission team comes, very few people might show up because others would not know about APRM. So I think before we talk about the next peer review, let us put the house in order and ensure that as many people as possible are aware. And then when the mission team comes through, then even traditional leaders can come on board and offer their views. So that's the approach that we thought we've put in our analysis, to say that we need now to look at that. Because currently what's happening, before the second review, we've been working on the recommendations that we were given, and there were quite many, and they are there in the report. I can give you three examples. Number one, we were told that we are too centralized as an economy, and the solution was that a national centralization policy was launched. Number two, we were told that gender mainstreaming was quite low in Zambia, and the solution was that we created a gender ministry, and the numbers of women in leadership positions has at least increased compared to what it was. We were also told to improve in areas of economic development as well, areas of CSR as well. So we can see that we are working on those modalities before the next review, and I think that's perhaps could have been one of the reasons why we've sort of flagged before the next review. So that was just another angle I thought I could take to help to answer the Honorable's question. Thank you.
In your recommendation, you have highlighted that there is need for an enhanced sensitization and education of CSOs. This having been identified as a challenge, has also highlighted that before you can even go for another peer review, there's need for more sensitization and education so that more people can come on board and be aware of this. What is it that is being done now to achieve this?
Mo Ibrahim, sometimes we hear, no, Zambia has been thrown in a junk. I'm sure that could be the least, rating. Have we managed, because on several occasions I hear that Zambia is the junk, the Ibrahim ratings. If we manage to come out, we are still there. Is it a bottomless pit? We can't come out.
It has clearly been indicated in the report, and I think many other submissions that have come before,
Yes.
that this core, the group that was supposed to be spearheading the APRM, it's like the Minister of Justice in the lead, and then the consortium of NGOs. But now, why is it that both sides are relaxed? SCOs or NGOs are supposed to be quite active and are supposed to come together and hold a meeting and come up with resolutions that would kind of push the Minister of Justice to kind of do something so that we are seen to be in tandem with other missions that are conducting PRMs. Thank you.
When the country mission comes to a country, to another country, it comprises of members from other countries as well. And what was happening was that some of the members in those mission teams were coming from countries that do not have a good governance standing and would want to come and criticize a country that perhaps is doing well in governance. And we observed that, and people openly spoke to say, and they mentioned countries in West Africa to say, you have a bad governance record, you can't come and say we're bad. So that's where the wrangles began. And I think there was also a question on the Mo Ibrahim and how we're faring. I must make mention that we should have perhaps maybe brought the recent ratings on the Mo Ibrahim. It's actually conducted, I think, annually on different indicators. So I think the notion that Zambia has gone to the trenches is not founded, because Mo Ibrahim, the main four is safety and rule of law, participation in human rights, sustainable economic opportunity, and human development. Then under each of these, there are about 4 to 6 different sub-indicators that have got 164 other sub-indicators.
I would just like to agree with you that Zambia actually has been doing very well on many fronts in terms of governance also. But we have not done our part in making sure that our country is painted right and correctly. We have had quite a number of individuals and also institutions going out to tarnish the name of our country, even when rightfully so, or wrong, or in a wrong end. But we can always make sure that we do our part by having line ministries or government departments to do their part in lighting up the image of our country. And APRM is one avenue that we can use to do just that. If only we can be peer-reviewed and give some modalities, and you will see that Zambia is still one of the beacons of the sub-Saharan region, because if you look at Ghana and compare it to Zambia, there are a lot of factors that Ghana undergoing, and Zambia is doing very well.